Hey everyone, my name is Penny Zanker, and it's time to reset. This podcast goes beyond just navigating change. It's about new ways of thinking about how you can approach challenges, how you can shift your mindset when needed, create some space and grace for yourself so that you can rethink, recharge, and reprioritize when and where needed. Are you ready to unlock your full potential? Thank you for hitting play and sharing this next episode with me. It's time to reset. Hello, and welcome to Take Back Time. My name is Penny Zanker, and I'm your host. And on this show, we look to pick people's brains and so that we can work smarter and not harder, right? That's what we want. As you're listening, I want you to be pulling out those nuggets that are going to help you to work smarter today. And I'm so excited to have a friend and great speaker and author. Shapiro is here with us today. And, he's a real innovator. He worked in innovation for more than 25 years. About 25 years ago, he created and led a 20,000 person innovation practice from the consulting firm Accenture. So that's pretty impressive to keep all of those people innovating and being in that mindset. That's his foundation. And he's also the author of 7 books, including his latest book, Pivotal, Creating Stability in an Uncertain World. So without further ado, Stephen, welcome to the show.
Fantastic to be here, Penny.
Being the depth of innovator that you are, right? How did that happen? Have you always been an innovator? Were you born with the innovation bug, or how did that develop?
So first of all, I actually think everybody is an innovator. We just innovate in different ways, but we'll save that for a separate conversation. The reason why I'm in innovation, why I'm so passionate about innovation, is because prior to innovation, I was actually focused on process optimization. What I would do when I was at Accenture is we go from company to company, client to client, and we would optimize their processes. And one of the things that I discovered was that when we optimized a company's processes, they would downsize the workforce. And there was a point where I just hit a breaking point. I had an existential crisis and said, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to help companies shrink. I took a 6-month leave of absence, reflected on what I wanted to do. And I loved Accenture and I loved consulting. I wanted to help companies grow rather than shrink. And with the help of a lot of really great, talented people, we created this 20,000 person innovation practice in about 9 months' time. And that's really when I got the innovation bug. And so my goal has been to help companies grow. And for over 25, nearly 30 years now, I've really never been involved in anything which result in one person losing a job. I want to create jobs in the work that I do.
It's so interesting that when a constraint comes along, it's like the first thing that people think of is, okay, we have to let people go. There's not, how can we keep the people we have and grow in other ways or do things differently that are going to, engage people in a different way. I do this exercise in some of my events, and the first thing that people want to do is they want to let go of people on their team. And I'm like, oh my goodness, people, just get creative, right? I can totally relate to that. Do you find that by innovating, you're also optimizing?
Innovation requires optimization. It requires simplification. There's lots of different ways. Just to build on what you said, in a lot of cases, the best way to innovate is to get people to do what they do better than anyone else, which means maybe not getting rid of them, but realigning them with different activities inside of the organization where they can contribute the greatest amount. There's optimization, there's simplification, there's fundamentally doing things different ways. And now we've got AI, which is changing the rules. Everybody's worried about people losing jobs. And look, there is that concern. But at the same time, AI allows us to, instead of keeping the playing field level and reducing the number of people, what if we raise our game really high, leveraging AI, but still using the people that we can the best way that they can? And I think it's a really interesting time for us right now.
How do you do that? Let's innovate for a moment, right? This is the crisis that some people are experiencing. I'll say crisis for them. Other people are seeing this as a huge opportunity. But those that are feeling that limited, and like you said, what's one way that they could go about, like you said, seeing this as a bigger opportunity, and what needs to happen there?
I used a number of words. I used innovation, simplification, optimization. There's another word that I think is really important, which is differentiation. And differentiation, from my perspective, is not about being different. It is rather creating value for others in a way that no one else does and no one else can. And if we can really understand that, not as just at a corporate level, but as an individual, what do I do better than anyone else? What is it that I do that creates value? And if I can focus my energies there, then I can use, for example, AI tools to elevate my game. But it requires us to do some reflection. It requires us to step back and understand, well, what is that we do great? And most people don't want to take that time to do that type of reflection because it's not easy work. And in many cases, it's difficult because we can't see it. When I am looking at my differentiator, for example, I always hire outside parties, a third party to actually do that work for me because I might influence the way my clients describe my differentiator. I might not see it the same way that an objective third party might. It really does take time for us, but it's conversation. Differentiation comes from conversation with the people you're creating value for.
Like you, I'm going to pull out some of those words that you used because I'm celebrating my new book that's coming out called The Reset Mindset. And that first step, you said to step back, right? We have to step back away from it and embrace that reflection that we don't give ourselves time for anymore. We're so busy that we don't, of course, we can't innovate and we can't get out of our own way. It's because we're not taking that essential time to be able to even see things differently. That's like the first step in this reset mindset and this reset practice is to step back away from it. I love what you said about the differentiation piece and I'd like to dig more into that because to me, that goes into the second piece that I talk about, which is the get perspective. And you're giving us a new perspective, a way of looking at things is how can we dig deeper into differentiation by really utilizing people's unique skill sets or the company's unique skill sets. Do you walk people through like a way of thinking so that they can find that? How do you maybe just go a little deeper with us into that? Because I think that's so critical what you were talking about.
For me, differentiation, again, we tend to focus when we hear the word differentiation, we hear different. It's not, but that's only a small part of it. So there's 5 Ds that I've identified for differentiation. The first 2 Ds are all around how do you differentiate today? How do you do something that is distinctive and desirable? Those are the first 2 Ds. Distinctive means it's something you do that no one else does. We could say unique, doesn't have to be unique, but it's something that stands out. But it's that desirable part. And it has to be desirable externally and internally. For a company, it might mean that what we create is desirable to our customers, our consumers, our clients. And as an individual, we need to be thinking about what's desirable to us. What do we enjoy doing? What gives us the greatest pleasure? Because we're going to be at our highest levels when we get, but that's just today. We need to worry about the future. So the next 2 Ds are durable and dynamic. Durable means no one else can do it. Just because you are doing it doesn't mean somebody couldn't copy you. Durable means it stands the test of time. And dynamic means that we need to shift. We need to change direction when the world changes direction. Those are the first 4 Ds. And the last one is just around being disseminated, which means we need to, as an organization, make sure every person inside of our organization understands, internalizes our differentiator, and knows how they personally contribute to it. Because everybody in your organization contributes. And then once we do that, we disseminate externally, which makes sure that we sell where we differentiate. We market where we differentiate. Let's not focus on everything we do. Let's focus on the things which make us special.
I love that. I love that you're balancing, right, the aspects of today, but also we can't just be focused on today. Otherwise we'll wither and die the way that many companies are. And that there's that future aspect. And then how do we really live into it? What time frame does it take when people are engaging in this process to say, okay, I really want to bring this differentiation and live into it? What's an implementation time frame that you've seen?
I mean, some things can be immediate. The first step, as you're talking about, is we need to have clarity. That takes time to at least get some level of clarity. And that clarity comes, again, from conversation. That's probably the most difficult and time-consuming part, is to just really understand who we are. And I'll just tell you a quick story, which Please. I love. There's a company called Radio Flyer, which is known for their original red wagon. Basically, it's a company from 1917. The current CEO, Robert Passon, he is the grandson of the founder of the company. And what I love, and he told me this when I was working on my book, he said, the way that we understand what our purpose is, what our differentiator is to have conversations with people. So I would go up to anybody and everybody and say, hey, radio flyer, what does it mean to you? And the first thing that would happen is people would start smiling and they would start telling stories. It's like, yeah, my wagon, it was spaceship. It was, I could have the wind blowing through my hair. It was like a magic carpet, whatever it was. And what happened is people had smiles and it brought back memories of a lifetime. And they decided their differentiator is not their products. It's not their wagons. It is the smiles that they bring and memories that last a lifetime. So everything they do is linked to that. Every decision they make is linked to that. If you're at customer service and you're answering a phone, you're not there to solve a problem. You're not there to sell something. You're there to bring a smile to the person on the other end of the phone that's going to last a lifetime. When they built their store, their goal from the second someone gets into that store, it's not about selling a product. It is about creating that memory, that smile that will last a lifetime. Every person understands it. Every person has internalized it. Once you get that clarity, it's now just making sure everybody lives and breathes it every day.
Yeah, I love that. In another context, I've heard people ask the question, what business are you really in? To dig into what you're saying, right? Like a jeweler is not just selling jewelry, right? They're making people feel special, right? Like you said, it's really getting to understand what that unique positioning is that you have. And then, of course, there's not that many wagon makers, but I guess, right, if you have a jeweler, right, it's then what specifically for that particular group, right? How do you find that? Like, okay, there's not that many red wagon makers, but let's say it's more of a generic type of, let's take jewelry as an example, right? How would one jeweler differentiate themselves from another?
Let's just take Tiffany for a moment. Their blue box. I mean, first of all, they've got their own special blue. It is like a trademarked blue color and only they can use it. And what's inside the box for most people is less important than the fact that it came in that blue box. That is one form of differentiation. And I think, the key that most people need to understand is that differentiators are rarely products, technology, services, or offerings. They are capabilities that we've developed that allow us to then create new products, new services, and new offerings in the future. You think about Apple. Their iPhone is not their differentiator because every year they have to come out with a new one. And the goal of a differentiator is actually something which lasts for a long period of time. But I would argue it's their design and their integration. I'm on a Mac with another Mac and an iPhone and 2 iPads. Why? Because they talk to each other beautifully. I understand them, how they work. And that is a differentiator for them, which maybe their competitors have slightly better technology specs, but it's that network effect and that simplicity that they do so well. It's a capability that allows them to create something each and every year. I always tell my clients, stop focusing on the products and technology and all the things that you think make you special, because somebody's going to copy them. Somebody's going to replicate them. And in a year's time, what you think is special will no longer be special. And the whole purpose of this is to create stability, create a foundation that actually will stand the test of time so that when you do need to change direction, when you do need to pivot, it's built on a solid foundation rather than on quicksand, which is the way most people actually operate their businesses these days.
On quicksand.
Exactly. Bright, shiny objects everywhere. Oh, we got an opportunity. Most of the opportunities out there are distractions because you don't have clarity around your differentiator. When you have clarity around your differentiator, you can distinguish opportunities from distractions. But right now, everything looks great because you have no filter or lens to be able to determine what's what.
Totally. It makes a lot of sense. So you mentioned your book, Pivotal, and I suppose all of this is in there, right? These 5Ds. And you mentioned that stability factor, right? Being the core of what to work around. Could you talk more about that in terms of, I want them to hear it from you. Tell us how you describe that to people and how they understand how to have stability in a time of uncertainty.
The way I find stability is to focus on what doesn't and shouldn't change. It's fascinating. In the world of innovation, we're always talking about what's new, what's next, what changes. And the reality is, if we're constantly chasing what's new, next, and what's changing, we don't have any traction. There's no stability. We're basically throwing out our past to have a different future. What we need to do is to create that level of stability is to focus on what's now, what doesn't change, what will stand the test of time, that if we could double down our investments here, would actually pay dividends in the future. And there was a great quote, and I'll paraphrase it here, but it was from Jeff Bezos. It was in the Harvard Business Review, I think it was 2007. And he said, people outside Amazon are always asking me, what's going to change in the next 5 to 10 years? And he said, this is the wrong question. They should be asking what will not change, what won't change, what shouldn't change in the next 5 to 10 years. Because at Amazon, we focus on the things that don't change so that we can build flywheels that will create dividends and pay dividends for the future. And I think that's a really powerful, simple way to visualize this is like, what can we invest in today that will pay dividends in the future? There are things that will change, but let's first focus on that stability. And I want to come back to something you said just a couple minutes ago. It's like the defining the business, what business we are in. Penny, you and I, we got connected because we're speakers. But are we speakers? Because if we think of ourselves as speakers, the way we create value is by getting on a stage and delivering a speech. But we are content experts. So I'm an innovation expert. Yes, I deliver my content through speeches, but I do consulting, I do advisory work, I have an apprenticeship program. We have different ways of delivering. And sometimes we need to reframe the business we're in to create more value. Because if we're speakers, we need to do 20, 30, 40, 50 speeches a year. And there's no depth to that. I've shifted my business where instead of trying to do 50 speeches a year, I just want to do 15 to 20 speeches a year. And then I want to do 3 to 6 deep dive relationships with a client where we do transformative work. Now, it's more value to them, fewer clients for me. So I'm spending less time selling, which is great because selling is not my strength. And it's really important for us to understand how can we go deep? How can we create greater value for our customers and clients? That's the way that we get that stability.
So interesting. So let's take speakers for a minute, because I think that's a great way, because I know that business. And so like you defined it as content creator and expert. Someone else might define it, and that would be their differentiator. And tell me if I'm on the right track here, right? Someone else might say, I'm an experience maker. For them, they might not want to go deeper. They might want to create these experiences. That's what enables, if I'm getting it correctly, right? That's how you can, in one industry, have many different people who have their differentiator because their unique offering, right? You can go deep and you can implement these for large organizations or small organizations, and that brings you joy and so forth, right? So I think it's interesting to use that and see that as an example where someone else might not be going to that level, might not be the content expert per se, but might be creating an experience or whatever. That opened up just some new ways to think about it and look at it for me, right? And hopefully that's what people are listening to as well, is how do you find those unique strengths and create value only that you can create? That's what I heard. And those examples were perfect for understanding that.
Buddy of mine, a fellow speaker, Jason Hewlett, he is like probably one of the most talented people on the planet. And he talks about your signature move. I love that metaphor. It's like, whether it's Michael Jackson doing the moonwalk or Elton John wearing glasses. And if you ever get a chance to see Jason, trust me, it's something you want to do because he's unbelievable. Jason is just seriously the most unbelievable speaker you will ever see. Now, he doesn't do the type of work that I do, but that's great because there's a market for what he does.
Right.
He's got signature moves that I don't have. And if you get a chance to really experience different types of speakers, even in the innovation space, I'm an innovation speaker. There's so many different innovation speakers. You've got some who are very academic. You've got some who might be a little more dynamic. And then even in that, there's a wide range. Differentiation can come in so many different forms. I have something called personality poker. It is a card deck where people trade cards. It's all around innovation, but not too many people have a card deck that they use with 1,000 people in an audience to get people to actually understand their contribution to innovation.
Because not many people used to be magicians. I'm just throwing that out there that people might not know that about you. And that's pretty cool. And it's part of your whole offering and how you show up, right? That's really cool. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Before I ask you how people can find out information about you, I've been asking every guest this question, and I love to hear the answers. Again, in celebration of my new book that's coming out, The Reset Mindset. How would you define what a reset mindset is with limited knowledge, right?
I think for me, it comes back to something we talked about earlier, which is sort of pushing the pause button because we're so busy and we're moving, we're keeping ourselves so engaged in work, but we don't actually stop and ask ourselves, am I moving in the right direction? Speed in the wrong direction means you're moving further away from where you really should be going. For me, it's always very interesting to ask yourself, where am I? Where do I need to go? And my general philosophy, it's not about goals. I have a book called Goal Free Living, which is really sort of the anti-goal book. And the general philosophy there is you want a sense of direction, not a specific destination. And then you want to meander with purpose. And basically what that means is each and every day, you're going to have new insights, new experiences, new data that's going to help you course correct. And instead of trying to go from point A to point B on a highway, take the back roads, change direction, see what's working, see what's not working. It really is a great way of living life. It's about experimenting every day to see what works, what doesn't work, and testing it out. Basically, it's a pretty common technique in innovation.
It's funny that we've talked about this before, how we have a lot of similar thinking. So that's exactly the reset mindset is about dynamic reassessment. And that would be a great way to describe it, right? Is goal-free living. I love that. I'll have to quote you and bring that into this space because I still believe in goals, but I like that idea that it makes you more free, more adaptable, and doesn't limit you and allows you to take in whatever changes or adaptations are naturally necessary and just go where it takes you. Love exactly. That. You're celebrating, you just launched your new book like a couple of weeks ago, right? So tell people where they can get it and how they can get more information about you.
Sure. So the book Pivotal, and the subtitle is Creating Stability in an Uncertain World. You can get that at thepivotalbook.com. And if you want to learn about me, go to theinnovationspeaker.com. Probably the fastest way to find me. And from there, it takes you to my speeches, but you can click on my homepage, blog, and other goodies, or you can go to personalitypoker.com if you want to learn more about the card game.
Very cool. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
And thank you all who were here listening. Wow, there were a lot of gold nuggets that came out of this, whether it was the 5Ds, focusing on the things that you can do today, the future, and then how to really live into that. So many other nuggets that we could take away, even that last piece just about the goal-free living and being more adaptable in where you're headed. And I like that it's to have a sense of direction, but not a specific destination. In light of that, thank you all for being here. My name is Penny Zanker, and we'll see you in the next episode. Hey, thank you for spending this time with me. It really means a lot. If you're feeling a little off, distracted, overwhelmed, stuck, or just out of sync, remember that's your signal to reset. And that's all it takes, just recognizing one reset moment at a time. So stay tuned for more tips, tools, tricks, stories, strategies, all here on Time to Reset. We'll see you in the next episode.